Greetings, programs. This is Wretch. Welcome back to Lamplight City. And we are back at the Harris residence, guys, and this time not impaired by any kind of substance. And now we get a chance to talk to Miriam here about the disappearance of her son, Charles. Hopefully she has some new information.
I have some questions for you if you're up to answering them, Mrs. Harris.
I'll try my best, Mr. Fordham.
Kidnapping, torn fabric. Let's just go down the line here.
Tell me what you know about your son's kidnapping.
Oh, my poor baby.
Mrs. Harris, I know this is difficult, but I need as much information as you can give me so I can bring your son back.
Yes, you're right. I have to stay strong. For Charles. It happened sometime between 6 and 8 last night. I think. Both my husband and I had gone out. Charles was in the care of his nanny, Mrs. Davis. I arrived home first, around 8:30, and that's when I found this scene in the nursery, as it was.
And what was it you found?
Mrs. Davis, unconscious in her chair, the broken window, and Charles missing from his crib. Malcolm arrived home shortly afterwards, around 9, and then immediately sent our butler, Mr. Havelock, to notify the police. We stayed up waiting for any contact from the kidnappers, but there was nothing.
Your husband mentioned he was out with friends last night. Where were you?
Oh, I was visiting with some of my friends. We gathered at one of their homes for a concert.
It seems hiding something from your spouse is an activity both Harrises partake in.
Yes, indeed.
What can you tell me about Mrs. Davis?
Well, she's worked for us since Charles was born, a little over 6 months ago.
How did you come to employ her?
Malcolm's mother had a friend whose daughter she used to care for. She came highly recommended. We've never had any problems with her. She's always been a dream.
Where is she now?
In her room, I would guess. With Charles missing, there's little for her to do.
Where might I find her room?
There's a small building just around the back of the manor. Hers is the 4th door from the left.
Small building.
Can you think of any reason why your son would be a target for kidnapping?
It could be that someone wants our money, or some lunatic who's angry about the new airship. My husband's an investor, and my father-in-law owns the company building it, you see. I just don't know, Mr. Fordham. Frankly, the fact that something like this could even happen is just terrifying.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is our only child. He's such a good boy. Never makes a fuss. Always very sweet. Oh, Charles, you must be so frightened out there without your mother. Oh, please, Mr. Fordham. You have to bring him home.
I'll do my best. Tell me a bit about yourself, Mrs. Harris.
Mr. Fordham, my son has been kidnapped and is out there alone, terrified and confused. What could I possibly tell you that would make any difference to you finding him?
I suppose you're right, Mrs. Harris. My apologies if I upset you.
Yeah, well, I think that was a legitimate question.
I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, I don't recognize it. It looks like it came from some cheap coat. Is that what the ruffian who took my baby was wearing?
That's what I'm trying to determine. I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
No, I've never seen it before. Do you think it was left by the kidnapper?
Perhaps. Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
No, I can't think of anyone or anything I know with those initials.
I found this note in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
What? You had no right to go through my things?
Mrs. Harris, I'm just trying to find your son. The sooner I know about any clues I might find, the faster I can proceed with my investigation.
Fine. I got that note last night from Roland.
Okay.
Who is Roland?
Roland is a special friend.
I see.
Oh, don't you judge me, Mr. Fordham. You have no idea what my marriage has been like. Marrying Malcolm wasn't my idea, nor even his. The whole thing was orchestrated by our fathers. They thought merging the two families would be a good business arrangement.
Is your marriage an unhappy one, then?
It wasn't easy at first. And it didn't get any easier as it went on, either.
So then, why not end it?
Mr. Fordham, we are a respectable family. There are certain considerations. Besides, I had no legal grounds. For all his faults, Malcolm is a very faithful man. Almost frustratingly so. Then, somewhat unexpectedly, we had Charles. At least that made things bearable.
I'm sorry for you, Mrs. Harris, I really am. But I think I should talk to this Roland.
Why? He has nothing to do with this.
That's for me to decide. Where can I find him?
I don't know. I've never been to his home. We usually meet at a hotel.
Can you tell me anything that would help me track him down?
Well, he's a musician. He plays the piano at some clubs in Gascon, but I don't know which for sure.
How about his last name?
I don't know that either.
Wow.
I gather you don't talk much.
I refuse to answer that question, Mr. Fordham.
It's a good thing I don't have a stomach anymore, because I can guarantee you its contents would be on the floor right now.
That's all for now, Mrs. Harris.
Very well.
Well, that was an interesting conversation. Now, Malcolm isn't here because we confronted him about his gambling problem. Let's go in here and have a chat.
Shall we continue our conversation, Mr. Harris?
Yes, of course.
Now that your wife is out of earshot, tell me about the kidnapping and what these betting stubs have to do with it.
Right. As I said before, it had already happened when I got home. I had just come from spending the evening at the Meadows.
I see. I take it your wife isn't impressed by your hobby?
I promised her weeks ago that I would stop going, but I've had such a good streak lately. The last thing I wanted was to upset her further, yet it would be foolish of me to just give up on something so promising.
Can you think of anyone who might want to do you harm by taking your son?
Several, I'm afraid.
Go on.
I haven't exactly had the best of luck, Mr. Fordham. That's why this latest streak was so important to me. The truth is, I've gambled away most of my money. I've had to take out several loans so Miriam doesn't get suspicious. If she ever found out, it would be over. I can't lose her, Mr. Fordham. I just can't.
Where have I heard this before? You know, things would be so much easier if people just talked to each other.
I've tried doing business above board, but lately I've had to seek other resources.
What do you mean?
I was forced to visit a lending office. The owner was a rather shady Sambo, but I figured he'd be easier to deal with than the usual sheenies that run those type of places.
Can you believe this guy? Maybe we should just leave the kid be. He'd probably be better raised by wolves.
Right.
Who was the owner?
Mr. LeFay. I didn't bother to get his first name. His business is an abattoir row in Chumley. Horrid place. But I was desperate.
You think this Mr. LeFay may have taken your son as collateral?
Let's just say there isn't much those type of people wouldn't do to put a crown in their pocket.
Hell's bells.
Those are all the questions I had for now.
All right. If you don't mind, Mr. Fordham, I'm going back to the living room. I don't want Miriam getting suspicious.
Maybe you should get suspicious, to tell you the God's honest. Such a happy couple. Okay, let's go ahead and get out of here. I think we have found everything that we need to currently. And let's check Mrs. Davis's quarters.
Come in.
Good day to you, ma'am. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator. I'm looking into the kidnapping of Charles Harris. Are you Mrs. Davis?
I am. Oh, bless the spirits. They've sent someone to help at last.
Seems like that boiler's the only thing in here that's less than 10 years old. My mother had a pewter teapot as well. Always made the tea taste funny. Another Harris hand-me-down, no doubt. You'd think they would have washed it first. It's a spirit reaching out to a very frightened man. Possibly the fakest-looking photo I've ever seen.
That reminds that was a really big trend back in the fairy photography. You should check that out if you ever get a chance to.
That chest is full of undressed dolls? What the hell is wrong with this old bat? This looks like a mourning portrait of a young woman, probably a relative of Mrs. Davis. Painting of a tower on a Scottish moor. I wish I'd been able to make it over there. Painting of a misty forest with a cemetery in the background. Cheery stuff! Her Majesty Queen Jessica. This was clearly painted a long time ago.
Queen Jessica.
Pretty distinguished looking gentleman. Handsome. Good fashion sense. Wonder who he is.
Maybe the husband?
These are all books on spiritualism and the occult. Mrs. Davis doesn't seem to have many other hobbies. A boy taking a nap under a tree while his dog runs around in the distance. That brings back some good memories.
Check everything else before we have a chat with her.
The Harris family doesn't seem to hold the comfort of their servants in very high regard. I think a bed of nails would be an improvement.
Hey, you know, at least it's not the... At least she's getting treated better than the servants in the last case. Good lord.
I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
Tell me about the kidnapping of Charles Harris.
Oh, dear, may the spirits forgive me. I feel so awful. Charlie was my responsibility, and I failed.
Mrs. Davis, that is beside the point. What's important now is finding him and bringing him home. To do that, I need your full cooperation.
Oh, you're right, Mr. Fordham. I'm sorry. I just need to collect my thoughts, get the negative vibrations out of my mind. Now, what specifically would you like to know?
Whoa. Okay, let's see if we can purge those negative vibrations, shall we?
What time did the kidnapping occur?
I'm not entirely sure. I know I was in the nursery having a cup of tea about 8:30. I remember feeling very drowsy. I must have passed out then because the next thing I knew, I was being woken by Mrs. Harris. That was after she got home, about 10:30. To think, whoever took Charlie did it while I was in the room. Oh, may the spirits grant me peace.
Do you happen to take any sort of sleep medications or soporifics?
Oh, dear me, no. Those types of drugs cloud the mind and make it impossible to tune into the ether.
You say that as though it were a bad thing.
I beg your pardon?
Apologies, I spoke out of turn.
So the timing is... the reason that we have that clue is because... It's either because she was drugged, or the timing that she's giving is actually different, because she's... they said something about 6 to 8, and she sat down with her tea at 8:15 and was woken up around 10. So we may have to check on that.
Can you think of anyone who would have wanted to take the child?
Well, I'm not one to gossip, but I am quite sensitive to the energy and vibrations that people give off. I get the impression that Mr. and Mrs. Harris aren't very happy in their marriage.
No.
Come on, anyone could have picked up on that. Anyone except you, that is.
Mr. Harris likes to stay out late and not take his wife with him. I can't remember the last time they went out together. I don't know what he gets up to, but it's possible he may have made some enemies.
Can you think of any reason why someone would want to kidnap Charles?
It might have been for money, but last I heard there was no demand for a ransom. I honestly don't know why this happened, Mr. Fordham. I just hope you find the poor child. He must be scared to death.
It could be collateral, because if someone knew about Malcolm's debt, they wouldn't have gone for a ransom, unless they knew that his father may have been the one to fork over the money.
I found this piece of torn fabric in the nursery. Does it look familiar to you?
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
I found this button in the baby's crib. Do you recognize it?
Why, yes. That's one of Barney's eyes.
Barney?
Charlie's stuffed bear. It's his favorite toy, a gift from my friend Linda.
I didn't find a stuffed bear in the nursery.
Then whoever took the baby must have taken Barney as well. Oh, at least the poor thing has something to comfort him. Bless the spirits.
Who is Linda?
Mrs. Linda Walker. She's a good friend of mine. As I said, she gave me Bonnie as a gift for Charlie.
Can you tell me anything else about her?
Oh, she's a lovely girl, very much in tune with her spiritual nature. I greatly enjoy my conversations with her.
When was the last time you saw her?
I don't remember. No, wait. It was at the last Spectre Society meeting on the 19th. That's right.
Though that sounds foreboding.
What is the Spectre Society?
It's a club for spiritualists and amateur investigators of the paranormal. We meet twice a month to socialize and discuss our findings.
I see. Sounds fascinating.
Oh, I don't expect you to share my beliefs, Mr. Fordham.
Oh, I have a bit more experience than you'd think with regards to the spirit world.
You can say that again.
Where exactly do these meetings take place?
At a private residence in Gascon.
May I have the address?
Why, yes, it's 325 Rue Jameau. Are you going to seek spiritual guidance to find Charlie?
Perhaps. You never know what might be worth looking into.
Yeah, that's true enough.
That's a lovely portrait. Who is it of?
That is my late husband, Jonathan. He used to attend meetings of the Spectre Society with me, bless him. I tried to get him to be more in tune with the other side, but I think he was just humoring me. He was a good man. Everyone at the society cared for him very much.
Do you have Linda Walker's address?
No, I don't. I never visited her home. I get the feeling she doesn't like having visitors or being home very much. She prefers to meet people elsewhere. I was the same way after my husband died. It was embarrassing for my friends to see me living so differently. But I feel it's not just a matter of pride for dear Linda. I think there are lots of bad memories associated with where she lives. I try to stay away from places like that. They leave a mark on the soul, you know.
Interesting.
I couldn't help but notice that chest full of dolls in the corner.
Oh, that. Oh, I know it must look a bit strange, but I pick up old and broken dolls so they can be repaired and donated to orphanages. It's my way of giving back to the community and helping poor children who have nothing to play with.
Well, what a kind soul. I wish she would find less creepy ways to express her altruism.
Hey, I'm just happy. Not what it looks like. Achievement unlocked. Hey, at least she's doing good.
How long have you worked as a nanny?
Only a few years. I never had to work when I was married. My husband had a lot of money. Unfortunately, he was in great debt, and after the spirits took him back to the ether, I wasn't left with much. So I began working as a nanny to make ends meet. But I consider taking care of children a reward in its own right.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I'm not getting any, negative vibes from her, let's say. Let's look at our casebook here. Learn about Linda Walker at the Spectre Society. Speak with Mr. LaFay, the moneylender. Find Roland, the musician. Speak with Arthur Devons at the Harris Construction Yard. Look at how many potential suspects we have. Holy crap. Mrs. Davis's testimony for clues. Alright, I'm going to check something real quick.
I'll be going now, Mrs. Davis.
May the spirits guide your path.
Whatever gives them an edge. We're going to head back to the Harris residence. And I'd like to chat with both of them and see if we can find something about the discrepancy of the time.
I'll let you know if I have any more questions, Mr. Harris.
Nothing there.
Sit tight, Mrs. Harris. I may have more questions for you later.
Okay, that may have just been the timing of when they were out. Lending office, Harris Construction Yard, Spectre Society. Let's go ahead and head to the construction yard. That was the first kind of direction we were pointed in.
And so we say to Harris and his cronies, no, we will not stand for this. Too many have died to allow this to continue. Steam tech must be stopped.
Well, someone certainly wasn't shy about making their opinion known.
Murderers.
Rich people really do like making others aware of what's theirs, don't they? Don't these people have jobs they need to go to? Elect Hart Leroy, the man of the people. I think that's preaching to the choir around here. But the way this gate is set up, I think trespassers should get an award for being able to breach the fortress.
Yeah, barbed wire and everything.
Do you suppose that's for keeping protesters out or the yard workers in?
We won't stand for this injustice any longer.
Now that is an impressive piece of machinery. I suddenly remembered a joke. What's the difference between the HMS Lenore and Chief Snelling? One is a greatly disliked and untrustworthy sack of hot air, and the other is the HMS Lenore.
Pardon me, are you Arthur Devons by any chance?
Yes? Who are you?
Miles Fordham, private investigator. Could I ask you a few questions?
Guess so, yeah.
Oh, you guys are still going to be mumbling in the background? Good lord. Okay.
Do you recognize this letter, Mr. Devons?
How'd you get that? That wasn't meant for you.
I found it at the home of Mr. Malcolm Harris. He tells me you've been sending quite a few of these to his father.
Me and everyone else what had someone killed by that devil machine. I'm not the only one, you know.
Perhaps not, but he told me you were the most persistent. What have you got against the Harris family?
The family? Don't know nothing about the family. The only one I got a problem with is Clyde Harris, the one who owns this yard. He's just like all those other rich bastards with their heads in the clouds. The man don't care about the dead. He just wants to make as much money as he can. I'm just trying to make him realize how wrong he is.
Boy, howdy.
Do you know anything about the kidnapping of Charles Harris?
Charles Harris? Who's that?
Clyde Harris's grandson.
I didn't even know we had a grandson. I can't believe someone with a grandkid, a family, would want more flying death in the air. How many more people have to die before someone realizes that steam machines are evil? People will kill their own mams for a crown these days.
Mr. Harris told me you send a bag of chicken bones and dust along with your letters. Why is that?
Chicken bones? Dust? Nah, that's not right. I've only sent letters.
Are you certain of that?
Yes, as sure as I'm standing here.
Right. And I'm the queen. I get the feeling this guy will crack if we figure out what the significance of his little gift is.
Why are you out here protesting?
Because what Harris Construction is doing ain't right. I lost my wife in the Lygia crash, and I'm not the only one, neither. Hundreds of people were affected by that disaster, and now these bastards are making another airship. It's like a slap in the face to everyone who died. I just can't understand it.
What do you hope to accomplish by protesting?
Simple. We want construction of the Lenore stopped, and a full investigation into the Lygia disaster. Not only that, we want compensation for our losses. Royal Maverick took care of all the families of those on board, but the families of the ones in the park didn't get a single copper. It just isn't fair. We aim to make things right. After that, it'll just be a matter of time before people realize that there's no future in steam tech, and they'll call the whole thing off.
Ah, the innocence of the downtrodden. I wish I could be as naive as them. It would have made my life a lot easier.
That sucks that the people in the park didn't get compensation, but the whole no steam tech thing, that's not happening. The march of progress and all that.
You must have loved your wife very much.
Are you joking? I loved her more than there are stars in the sky. She was my whole world, Mr. Fordham, the light of my life. It's been nothing but cold and dark since she was killed. You're married, aren't you, Mr. Fordham? I see a ring on your finger.
I am, yes.
Then take my advice. Appreciate every moment you have with her. You never know when she'll be ripped out of your life, leaving you with nothing.
You know, this fellow was actually pretty wise. Maybe we misjudged him.
Does this piece of fabric look familiar to you?
Looks like it came from some fancy jacket, the type you'd expect to see on the snobs in Leon. I could never afford clothes like that in a million years.
Do you recognize this button?
Can't say I do, but it looks handmade. I wonder how long it will be before the poor soul who crafted that button gets booted into the street and replaced with some steam-belching contraption.
You seem very dedicated to your cause.
I'll take that as a compliment, Mr. Fordham.
There's quite a lot of people who are against steam tech, aren't there?
Yes, the movement is gaining ground and growing rapidly, I'm pleased to say.
I've heard stories about some more extreme members. Do you know anything about that?
You mean the Redites? Sure, I've heard of them. Even met a few. But if you think I'm telling you anything else beyond that, you're sorely mistaken.
Are you a member of the Redites, Mr. Devons?
No, I prefer more peaceful methods of making my voice heard. Now, if you don't mind, I think we should drop the subject.
Good day to you, Mr. Devons.
You too, Mr. Fordham.
Rabble, rabble, rabble.
Clyde Harris has no concern for the people who died aboard the Lygia or their...
Okay, well, that was not what I expected. I guess now we'll head to the lending office.
Hello, sir. Welcome to LaFay Lenders. I'm the owner, Chester LaFay. Are you looking to take out a loan?
Not today, I'm afraid. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator.
Look, I don't know what you've heard, but I run a clean business here. I don't need any trouble.
And I'm not here to cause any, for the moment.
Just keep your nose where it belongs, and we should get along fine.
Well, to tell you the God's honest, this is a lot nicer than I expected.
Do you suppose LaFay turns the heat up to put some pressure on his clients? Must be soothing for LaFay to be able to look at this landscape while he sits at his desk. LaFay with a woman and a small girl. I wouldn't have taken him for a family man. He actually has a degree in business from the University of New Britannia? What a waste. A crew escaping a shipwreck on a violent sea. Not the most comforting painting to look at while waiting for a loan.
Right.
I shudder to think how many people's financial freedoms are locked away in that cabinet. That's the latest model Computron. They don't come cheap. LaFay must be doing pretty well for himself.
Well, let's try not to accidentally take out a loan while we're here, shall we?
Mr. LaFay, I'd like to ask you some questions.
Fine, but keep it brief.
Tell me what you know about Malcolm Harris.
Ah, Mr. Harris. Took out a loan about a month ago. Still hasn't paid me back. In fact, he sent along a letter yesterday, saying he was having an emergency and needed more time. I probably should have refused to do business with him. As soon as he walked through the door, I could tell his type.
What type is that?
Upper class, bored with his life, trying to escape and doing it through vice. In his case, gambling.
This guy is good. Maybe you can pursue money lending if the whole private investigator thing doesn't work out.
But for some reason, I pitied him, and decided to give him the loan anyway. Compassion isn't exactly an asset in this business, you see.
Nothing to worry about in your case, then.
Aside from that, I don't know anything about him. I prefer to keep how much I know about my clients to a minimum. Makes things easier for me.
Are you aware that Malcolm's son, Charles, was kidnapped last night?
I had no idea he even had a son. As I said, I don't ask my clients too many personal questions. Though now you've told me, I suppose that would explain the emergency he mentioned in his letter. Poor guy.
Exactly how much did Mr. Harris borrow from you?
Is that relevant to your investigation?
It would help to have an idea of exactly how much he owes you, yes.
I don't feel comfortable telling you the exact amount, but I will say it was over 500 crowns.
A considerable sum.
Like I said, I probably shouldn't have done it, but I'll get the money back one way or another.
Yep. He's like the, what was the name of that place? The Iron Bank. Hey, one way or another, they always get their money.
What's your policy regarding people who don't pay their loans back?
There are a few options. For the first 3 months or so, I'll send them a letter reminding them. After that, I start to threaten them with legal action. You wouldn't believe some of the things people do to avoid paying back their loans. One client went so far as to fake his own death.
Do you ever employ any more unusual methods?
Now wait just a minute. I see where this is going. Mr. Fordham, I'm a family man myself. If you're implying that I would stoop to kidnapping someone's child as collateral...
I never said that, Mr. LeFay.
Look, I have a family to consider. I'm not about to go getting my hands dirty when there's plenty of legitimate ways to handle the situation.
Take a look at this piece of fabric. Does it look familiar to you?
Sure, it looks like it came from a jacket. In fact, yes, it's the same fabric as the jacket I'm wearing.
Would you mind if I took a look at your jacket?
Sure, not a problem. Here.
Okay. Yeah, same type of fabric, but I'm not seeing anything torn.
No tears in mine, huh?
Not a one. You clearly take good care of your clothing.
I don't mean to discourage you, Mr. Fordham, but I've seen a lot of people with this style of jacket. Hell, even Malcolm has one. I remember he was wearing it when he came in here.
I see. Thank you for the information, Mr. LeFay.
Could Malcolm have kidnapped his own son? I think we still have some questions for LeFay, but I think this is a good place to end the episode, guys. We'll go ahead and pick it up next time, because we still have the Spectre Society to investigate. But if you guys like the episode, please leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, that'd be a big help. And we'll see you next time. Later days, everyone.